It out with me. This is the Who Is Like You Ministries.org, an article that I came across. I wanted to actually do some research on my own. I've actually done the research years ago, but I actually wanted to do a paper in my own wording, you know. But until then, this is 2021, 2022, almost 2023, actually. More closer to 2023 than 2022. So, anyway, this article is entitled, what Greek writings was Paul referring to in Acts 17 and 28? Okay. And I would like to change that to what Greek mythological writings and what Greek gods were Paul referring to. And they were none other than Zeus and Dionysus. Now let's go check out the writings of these Greek mythological gods and Greek mythologies that Paul was getting his writings from, that he was referring to in Acts 17:28. The background of Acts 17:22 through 31. Before we discuss what writings Paul was citing in Acts 17:28, it is important to give the context of what is happening. The story starts in 17:14 when Paul was sent to Athens, and while there, his spirit was provoked within him as he saw the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with the Jews and the devout persons, and in the marketplace every day with those who happened to be there. Acts 17:16 through 17. Paul also dialogued with the Stoic and the Epicurean philosophers in Athens. Some thought he was crazy, while others took him seriously and investigated the foreign deity Paul was preaching about. He was then brought to the Areopagus, which is Arian Pagan, also known as Mars Hill, named after the Roman god of war, Mars and Ares, in Greece, in order to hear his message. The Areopagus was the judicial hill where various cases like murder trials were held. The Council of the Areopagus may also have had jurisdiction over religious matters, which would explain why Paul was brought here to clarify his teachings. It is here where Paul would give his defense for his faith in Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, in Acts 17:22 through 31, in front of the whole Greek crowd of the Areopagus. So Paul, standing in the midst of the Areopagus, said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious, for as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, I have found also an altar with this inscription, 'To the unknown God.' What therefore you worship as unknown? This I proclaim to you, the God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, doth not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands, as though he needed anything. since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way towards him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being, as some of your own poets have said. For even in him we live, we move, and have our being. In him we live, we move, and have our being, as even some of your own poets have said. For we are indeed his offspring. Being then God's offspring, we ought not think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image formed by art and imagination of man. The time of ignorance God overlooked, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent, because he has fixed the day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by a man whom he had appointed. And of this he has given assurance to all by rising him from the dead. Acts 17:22-31. Greek writings in Acts 17-28. Now let's focus in on the two specific writings that Paul quotes in Acts 17:28. Again, people, this is for entertainment and educational and critiquing purposes. Now let us focus in on the specific writings that Paul quote in Acts 17:28. For in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of your own poets have said, for we are indeed his offsprings. Acts 17:28. The first quote, in him we live and move and have our being, comes from Epimenides of Crete. Yes, in him we live and move and have our being. This statement comes from Epimenides of Crete. Paul again quotes Epimenides in Titus 1:12. Epimenides was a Cretan poet who lived 600 BC. The writing that Paul quotes is from the Critica. The second quote, for we are indeed his offsprings, is a writing by Aratus, a Sicilian poet, who lived in 315 to 240 BC. The full quote is, it is with Zeus that every way has to do, for we are also his offsprings. And he is quoting specifically phenomena. All peoples, Athens, along with all others, are God's offsprings, not in the sense that they are all his redeemed children, or in the sense that they are all possesses an element of deity, but in the sense that they are created by God and receive their very life and breath from him. The Athenians' very creation and continued existence depend upon this one whom they did not know. No such claim could ever be made by any of the scores of false gods worshipped by the Greeks. That is from Walvard, John F. and Zuck, Roy B., The Bible Knowledge Commentary, Commentary Springs, Cook's Communication Ministries, 1998, Accordance Bible Software. Now, could Paul have known of the Greek writings when he was a Jew? Another question may be asked is how Paul could have known of these works, considering he was a Pharisaical Jew who was mentored by the renowned Gamaliel? The answer to this question lies in where Paul was from, Tarsus. Tarsus was the capital of Cilicia in Asia Minor. Because of its geographical location, it's quickly become one of the most prominent places in Asia Minor. It was distinguished for its wealth and learning that not only rivaled Athens and Alexandria, but surpassed them. It had called and produced greater seekers of knowledge than any of the ancient Mediterranean cities. It is also very important to explain the Saul-Paul names. I will explain this in more detail in the future article, going more in depth. Excuse me, I may not have the future article. But when when a Jew was born in a Greek Roman territory or city, they were given a Greek name and a Jewish name. This is why Saul Paul had two names. His Hebrew name was Saul and his Greek name was Paul. He did not, like some will tell you, change his name from Saul to Paul when he was converted to Christianity. He was always Saul Paul. You'll also notice in the New Testament, Saul is referred to by the specific name depending on if the context is Jew or Gentile. This is Apologetics, Areopagus, Bible, Biblical Epic Greek, Hesiod, Homer, Jewish Mars Hill, mythology, Paul, philosopher, poet, apostle, Jews, Christianity, philosophy, Rome, Peter, Barnabas, Mark, New Testament, Acts of the Apostle. This is Justin Wheaton's work. Justin graduated magna cum laude with a bachelor's degree in Messianic Jewish Studies from the King's University. He is currently pursuing a dual master's degree in Old Testament and Semitic languages from Trinity and Evangelical Divinity School. He has had a number of articles published for Chosen People Ministries and Kesher, a journal of Messianic Judaism. He also reads a weekly Torah portion that's New Testament Israelite for the blacks. He also has, that's the counterpart for the that's the white Messianic Judaism for blacks. It would be, it's Messianic Judaism for blacks. It would be a New Testament Israelite. He also read the weekly Torah portion in Hebrew for his congregation and teaches Hebrew at his Messianic synagogue. So, this man is highly credible for what he is saying. So, this addresses the facts that the Bible is riddled with myth. And I'm not trying to turn nobody away from the Bible, but you have to read this stuff to understand this stuff. Paul knew that he was quoting from stuff from great ancient Greek mythology. He knew that he was quoting to scriptures because scriptures are writings. Okay, so he knew that he was quoting scriptures that were written unto Greek god Zeus. Okay. Yes, it is a fact that the Bible has myth in it. You know, I like how John Henry Clark said it. He said that the Bible is part fiction. It is part. He said it was part fiction. He said it was part history, and that it was part fable. Okay, now I'm gonna break that down to you. Okay, the fables are the myths of the Old Testament, which are, like I stated, they were the stories that were told before the times of Israelite writings and the times that were before Moses was born. Okay, and those were the ancient myths of the Bible. Okay, the histories come upon the time when Moses came upon the scene, because anything that was before a writing as we know it, that's before the paleo a Hebrew, or the paleo a Canaanite language, a Phoenician alphabet, you know, and languages, mostly the alphabet. Anything before that is deemed by historians as prehistoric. And most of the things that are prehistoric, if not all of them, are rooted in mythology. All right, they're mostly are written off as mythology. They're not even the texts that talk about the histories and the inventions and the technology and things like that. Even though the technologies have been tested and proven to be true and real, they're still written off as mythologies. All right. So it was Moses came around the time of writing. It was during the time of Moses that history came into play. So from the time of Moses all the way down to the book of Malachi, that have the histories that John Herrick Clark was talking about. So that account for the fables, aka the myths, of the histories of the Bible. And let's talk about the fiction. The fiction of the Bible starts from Matthew to Revelations. As we can see here, that the New Testament is just flat out quoting mythology, straight quoting Greek mythology, flat out of it. You understand? And it's riddled with falsehood, it's riddled with fiction, it's riddled with things that are just not real, not true, and never happened.